right, God is great. Proverbs 12. Let's call the next 7 Proverbs the sauce. Understanding that I think there is a certain formula that the writer of these Proverbs is coming or trying to communicate to us to help us to understand that whatever the unique way in which you build your success might be, there are some fundamentals that are consistent, at least consistent with the success that this proverb writer has found. Probably most of these are Proverbs of Solomon, but because I'm not sure, I'm still leaving it open. Even though in chapter 1, it opened up saying that these were the Proverbs of Solomon. Either way, the sauce is something that reminded me of my time grilling. And I might not be a great grill master, but over time, there were some things that I noticed that were consistent to the sauce or the marinades that I would use. And for me, it was salt, garlic, and onion. It seemed to be a consistent 3 elements to just about everything I was marinating. And so whatever you do, there may be some fundamentals that you understand. And likewise, the sauce for Solomon seems to involve some of the things we mentioned already. That question of righteousness versus wickedness, and then wisdom versus folly. But beyond that, we've also talked about the things we say, the way that we use our lips. However, he is going to, if we haven't already identified it, talk about likewise the way in which we hear is going to have a lot to do with how far we go and how well we go along the way. But beyond that, we've probably mentioned in passing another part of the sauce, and that's diligence. And so much like you might not like onions in your sauce. And so if you're cooking for somebody else or somebody's cooking for you, you might say, look, your basic 3 wouldn't be onions for me. Some of these are interchangeable. And so some of these proverbs are going to mix and match ingredients, meaning they're going to emphasize different elements of the sauce and they'll probably tinker with it a little bit. But the basic 2 are going to seem to deal with righteousness and wisdom working in various quantities of speech, hearing, and diligence. Sometimes directly linking diligence to our ability to earn money. And that's the one I want to focus on here because there are a number of money passages tied back to back in Proverbs 12, beginning in verse 9. It will say, better to be lowly and have a servant than to play the great man and lack bread. Whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. But going on in verse 11, he's going to say, whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. Going on to verse 12, though, whoever is wicked covets the spoil of evildoers, but the root of righteousness bears fruit. Going on to verse 14, however, skipping verse 13, it is going to say, from the fruit of his mouth a man is satisfied with good, and the work of a man's hands comes back to him. Going on to the last verse of the chapter where he will say, the second to last verse of the chapter where he'll say in verse 27, whoever is slothful will not roast his game, but the diligent man will get precious wealth. Linking those 2 concepts together, as we mentioned. The diligence that seems to be a sub-theme in some of these proverbs is sometimes linked to making money, but it's not always the case. Diligence has principles that go beyond making money, but sometimes they also affect your ability to appreciate gains, financial gains being one of those. But it also links back to a principle of endurance that we've talked about, meaning all that diligence doesn't matter if it goes in one pocket and out the other, or out the bottom of that pocket through a hole, which sometimes if you've lived for very long can seem to be the way that your finances can work. But verse 3 reminds us of a principle that goes back at least as far as the Psalms of David, where it says, no one is established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous will never be moved. Reminding us once again that all of these Proverbs in many ways go back to principles in the Psalms that in many ways go back to principles that God has tried to communicate to his people throughout the ages. And that is, all of our success means nothing if it doesn't exist in the kind of environment where we can enjoy it. And he is saying that no matter how successful or powerful we become, we will frustrate ourselves trying to create that environment without building in a way that would encourage God to bless the sauce.